It's a bit disappointing that that 99 can never become 100 in a first playthrough. Hey everyone, welcome back to more Persona 5 Royal! I'm SlayerMathis, and last time we did our last run through Mementos, and this time I'm not really going to be making any progress at all. I'm just going to be going over the all of the Personas that I have not gone over a intro for. No, I'll probably just upload this at the same day as another video, because this is going to be very optional, very boring episode, but it's just some cleanup things, so let's start off with them. The first one that we had missed on grabbing is Alice, the ultimate persona of death. Alice is literally just Alice in Wonderland. Kind of. I believe... Okay, so in here... and in Persona 4, they mentioned that there's a myth about a girl who died a sad death. I haven't been able to find any concrete things as to what this is, what the second history of Alice is. I suspect it's Little Match Girl, Hans Christian Andersen. Basically, little girl, cold on the streets, she's selling matches on New Year's Eve. Eventually she dies of hypothermia because she can't get any money or whatever. Eventually dies. Alice, potentially that as well. Definitely Alice in Wonderland. In addition, this is one of a few that can only be fused from certain combinations. That being, only if you fuse a Belial and a Nebulos will you be able to get an Alice. So, that is a little bit of a weird one, but fine in the end. Next up is Arda. Arda is the combined form of Shiva and Parvati, and fittingly for the game's perspective, it can only be fused by fusing Shiva and Parvati. It is the ideal form of God, and Vishnu does have an equivalent of this with Shiva in Vaikuntha Kamalaja. I don't know exactly. Again, I apologize, I'm going to be butchering so many words, although Vishnu's is seen much less common than Arda's. Asterios, I believe we've gone into. Athena, we've gone into. Belial is next up. Belial is the demon of lies and guilt. It likely, Belial itself as a word meant something more akin to worthless people before eventually being personified into a demon. It makes many appearances in the Dead Sea Scrolls, of course, very famous findings of, well, scrolls in the Dead Sea with some rabbinic text. I think it's rabbinic, that would be the correct word for that. It's often related to sins of lust, but it has been used as a personification of all evil. Next up, this might be one that we've gotten before, but I do not recall. Cerberus. I think we've gotten Cerberus before, and just didn't, I just didn't have it in this one, probably just from some point in time when I had some weird save issues with Shido's Palace. Cerberus is a good boy. He sits as the guardian of the underworld. He permits all spirits to enter and none to leave. And he's also on multiple times, but, you know, he's really generally good at his job of guarding the underworld, but he has been tricked on several occasions, mainly with some cake and some singing at times. 2 down is Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu is the Yellow Emperor's relative through his brother. So we've seen Koryu, Chi-Yu. These two are often in battles. Huangdi, again, that is also Koryu. If Koryu, Huangdi, is considered to be God, Chi-Yu is the devil. Chi-Yu is the god of war and the inventor of military weapons. He had many brothers, all with animal bodies, bronze heads, and iron foreheads. He himself had a human body, a horned head, ox hooves, 4 eyes, 6 hands, ears, and temples like swords and spears. So, not horribly off interpretation. Chi-Yu could also probably fly. Don't really know. And eventually he did get killed by Koryu, although the details as to how he died are a little bit debatable. He was eventually turned into a maple tree, and just the TLDR is that he's incredibly powerful. Before he died, he did fight against Huangdi Chi-Yu many, many times. Also, one thing that I do want to actually go back, there are a few unique abilities. Alice, being the ultimate of death, gets Just Die, which increases the SP cost to 0 for insta-kill skills, and also gives her Die for Me. High chance of curse insta-kill to all foes. Next up, I don't believe Arda has one. Actually, I think that is one. Nari is just a really good form of Mouth of Savoring. Sura, Atomic Hellscape, increase the cost of Nuke. Ball, I think? No, I know that Chiyu is one. Chiyu has Chiyu's Blessing, increases the SP cost of Psy by 75%. Crystal Skull is a very rare treasure demon. Crystal Skulls are skulls made of crystals. I know, real hot take. Usually it is made out of quartz. They've been found all over the world, particularly in Brazil. They've been found in China. They've been found in Germany. They've been found all over the world, but they probably don't really have all that much archaeological value. A lot of tests that they've been made conclude that they've been made fairly recently, and they've most likely been made by a pretty small German town. But Crystal Skulls kind of just got scattered all around the world. That. I believe we have talked about Spell, Linked Bloodline. I'll probably just go back around in a little bit, just to go over all the ultimate ones and what they all give. Fafnir is a dragon in Norse mythology. He used to be a dwarf, and then he got turned into a dragon from his greed. He betrayed his brothers and his dad to steal their gold and got turned into a dragon. This is kind of very much, not the exact same thing as Smaug in Lord of the Rings, but I would assume this is a influence on Smaug. He was eventually killed by Sigurd, who was sent by Fafnir's brother. Sigurd would get help from Odin in order to slay Fafnir. Afterwards, Sigurd ate his heart and learned how to talk to birds, because mythology. Futsunushi has Will of the Sword, which triples the effects of Charge and Concentrate. He is a Japanese warrior god, one of the many kami born from Izanagi's blood. He was born from the blood on Izanagi's sword from Kagetsuchi, which is the kami that Izanami birthed, which killed her. I think we've talked about before, I don't remember. So blood from that dripped off the sword, fell into a river, landed, eventually washed up on some rocks. That became Futsunushi. Some variants of that mythology also have another step in between there, where two spirits were born from that blood, and then they procreated to make Futsunushi, because mythology can't stay away from incest. Gabriel is one of the 4 major archangels. He is the angel of hope, love, light, illumination, justice, joy, and sometimes death. He is the angel that most notably speaks to humans, and he's said to blow the horn to signal Judgment Day. Unrelated, Judgment has a stupid spelling. Why is there no E in there? He's likely the angel that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, that fairly famous story in the Bible. He's one of only 2 angels mentioned in the Bible, the other one being Michael. He is the angel of dreams, and again, as mentioned before, he is the one that is most notably speaking to humans. So he spoke to Daniel in the book of Daniel. He spoke to Mary to reveal that she is the mother of Christ. Again, we have talked about Maria before. He dictated the Quran to Muhammad, except for potentially those verses involving Ali Lot. Don't know. And he possibly did a little bit more. He could have maybe been in the Garden of Gethsemane at the time of Jesus' crucifixion. Who knows? Another one that I could have sworn that we had gotten is a little of a ways down. We've already talked about Izanagi, how there's no difference between the different Izanagis. It's all just Izanagi, they just want to be a bit fancy. Kaguya we've had before. Kali, however. Kali I feel like we've had before, but apparently not. Kali is one of the major Hindu goddesses. She is India's Great Mother, the goddess of time, creation, destruction, and contradictions. She initially was a pre-Hindu Indian tribal goddess, but because of her popularity, she was eventually incorporated into Hinduism. She was incredibly powerful, but couldn't really contain her power. She's the only god capable of defeating a demon, but she basically couldn't stop. She went huge fury, kicking everyone's ass, but too much ass. Eventually, Shiva nearly killed himself by way of her, and she was like, oh shit, I should probably not do this. Kali is a very difficult goddess to understand, but if you do so, you are scared of, well, found out to be scared of nothing. If you can understand Kali, you really have nothing more to fear. She is often stereotyped as scary, bloodthirsty, and out of control, but this is a little bit of a, I mean, it's not entirely true. Like, there's, obviously, she does have some out-of-control things, but she's actually mostly kind of nice. She bestows protection, good health, abundance, and fertility. She also protects women and children. As described in Indian mythology's tales, rituals, and symbols from the heart of the subcontinent, she is associated with witchcraft, associated with death. She cackles and dances wildly in crematoriums and battlefields. She is a crone, she is destructive. She has no home. She has a shriveled body, has ferocious eyes, and sticks out her blood-soaked tongue. Her hair is unbound and unadorned. She has wild mannerisms. She holds skulls, bones, decapitated bodies, and severed limbs. And she's generally associated with jackals, hounds, and scorpions. So, they got some of those in here. She represents the unwavering ability to not back down from anything. To fully appreciate joy in life, suffering and death must be faced. Kali is responsible for life from conception to the grave. She maintains world order. Possibly the weirdest one that we missed is Kopatengu. I could have sworn we had Kopatengu, but apparently not. Kopatengu is just a bird-like yokai. They're tricksters. They're the weakest Tengu out there. Again, this is one that we might have had before, but I want to be safe. Next up is Lucifer. Lucifer has Allure of Wisdom, which decreases the SP cost of all magic skills by 75%. This is incredibly strong. He also gets Morningstar, which is an incredibly good ability. As for Lucifer, I talk about him later. I have him kind of just teamed up with Satan. A lot of the same things I will be talking about in there. So, actually, you know what? I'll just mention that now. So, Satan, actually, let me go over to Satan. On that note, we'll head back soon enough.
You would like to overwrite it.
That's what Satan looks like. Is Calcutus, which decreases the SP cost of ice skills. Satan is the big bad in Abrahamic religions, so to speak. The king of evil, prince of devils, all that sort of stuff. He's generally formerly an angel, who eventually tried to rebel against heaven. He caused the first sin, caused all that stuff. We mostly know of what Satan did. In Christianity, he tried to actively lead a rebellion against heaven. However, there is a little bit of a difference in Islam, where instead of actively rebelling, he refused to listen to God's orders to bow to Adam, because he said that he was better than Adam. He's not necessarily antithetical to God. He's not the big bad in terms of the exact opposite of God. He's more of someone who tests God's faith in humanity. He generally means accuser, or Satan means accuser or adversary, and Satan itself as a being became, again, less of this just test and more of the direct opposite during the Second Temple period, between 570 and between 530 BC and 70 BC, due to Zoroastrian influences. We've seen a little bit of those before. Different levels of importance. So Satan itself has different levels of importance depending on which Abrahamic religion you follow. In Judaism, it's less likely to call something a single thing Satan, although there are some times where they will specifically mention Satan. Rather, Satan is a representation of human sins. Christianity has it as a direct being, usually either being Beelzebub or Lucifer. That's why I had it teamed up with Lucifer. Islam features Satan as Iblis, not being a causer of evil, but rather someone tempting people to give in to their evil ways. In Islam, it is also debated on whether Iblis was an angel or a very strong jinn. Jinn being essentially, well, not essentially, genies were a type of jinn, I believe. Next one of the weirdest names in mythology, Metatron, who has Martyr's Gift, decreases the SP cost of blessed skills. Metatron is the greatest of angels, and he does not appear in the Hebrew Bible, but he does appear in the Talmud. It's a bit debated as to the exact identity of Metatron. Sometimes he's considered to be Michael, sometimes he is considered to be just a random angel, and more often than not, he is considered to be Enoch after being brought into heaven. Enoch being one of very few people to not die and just be brought up into heaven. Very holy, walked with God, all that stuff. Metatron himself records the sins and merits of man for them to be judged. Also, speaking of Michael, he's next up. Michael is the most famous of the Abrahamic archangels. His name means "who is like the Lord," which is either a question or a statement. Who knows? He was the leader of the army during the Angel Rebellion, especially in the context where Satan does immediately rebel. He is the strongest fighter of all angels, and it's said that if Lucifer could only have persuaded Michael to join him, heaven would have been overthrown. Michael is considered to be the angel of righteousness, and he is invoked for protection from anything for anyone, and he's also invoked for justice. He protects the victims of rape and sexual abuse. He also has dominion over fire and fire safety. Bit weird that he doesn't get any fire, but oh well. He's also the patron of the seas, invoked for safety at sea, and the patron from those suffering from sea or motion sickness. And in some Moroccan folklores, he's actually the reason for precipitation. Similar to a lot of things that we've seen before. I'm trying to think of some of them off the top of my head. Thanatos, I believe, is one. He's a psychopomp. Michael serves a lot of times as a psychopomp. He also weighs the souls of the dead for final judgment. He is also, finally, the angel of insomnia, either causing it or curing it.
You would like to
Mother Harlot is next up, the ultimate of the Empress, and giving you Ghost Nest, which increases your chance to inflict ailments on downed foes. Mother Harlot is the whore of Babylon. She appears in the Christian Bible's Book of Revelation, relevance in chapters 17 to 19 of that. The name itself, Mother Harlot, comes from Revelation 7:15. Upon her forehead was written, "Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth." And essentially, Mother Harlot, Babylon, the whore of Babylon, whatever you want to call it, is a representation of evil in the world, or love of the world. Next on our list is Odin. Odin is the main Norse god. He is a spirit of war, wisdom, death, patron of poetry, magic, and the heroic dead, the lord of ecstasy, shamanism, and esoteric wisdom. He is a very big fan of knowing things. He always has pursuit of knowledge, and most famously, he did give up an eye to learn more knowledge, again represented on here. So, weirdly, this is kind of a weird thing on here. So, right here, his arcana is Emperor. And that makes sense. He is essentially the emperor of all Norse gods. But the Encyclopedia of Spirits, probably the main source that I've been using, suggests that the entire tarot of the Hanged Man actually could be based off of Odin. There's similar sort of story to Jesus, but in order to learn some ancient knowledge, Odin basically crucified himself for 9 days on the World Tree, died, and then came back to life, and the image of him being crucified on the World Tree is the Hanged Man. That is what the Encyclopedia of Spirits suggests. He also bestows wealth, health, and success if he feels like it. Now, Onyoki. There have been 4 that we haven't mentioned up to this point. Suiki, Fuki, Kinki, and... well, actually just those 3, never mind. Now, Onyoki. Reason that I didn't mention those is because of Onyoki. They all have the same story. They were all 4 demons summoned by a noble family to rebel against the Imperial Court of Japan. Fuki summoned winds to blow enemies away. Suiki froze things to the core. Kinki had an impenetrable body. And Onyoki suppressed its aura to prevent enemies from sensing him, allowing him to surprise enemies when he attacked. And it is said that this is the origin of Jutsu. Orpheus we have talked about. Also, the reason there's different Orpheuses is, I believe, one is, this one is, I believe, for the female MC, this one's the male MC, something like that. We still have a little bit of ways to go for our next one, which is Sandalphon, who has Omen. I think that's the correct one. A greatly increases the chance of insta-kills. Not usually the biggest fan of it. Xenophon is also one of the main angels, sometimes said to be the strongest angel. He's also very, very big. As it says on here, said that it would take a human 500 years to walk the length of his body. He potentially is Elijah, who was another human brought to heaven before his death, similar to Enoch, who would become Metatron. He's also the director of Heaven's music, and he helps humans take care of Earth. Before we talk about Satan, and our next one up is Shiva. Shiva is the creator in Hindu mythology. He is the lord of fertility, the forest, hunting, fishing. He's a great healer and a patron to the untouchables and demons. He's a pre-Aryan deity that was so popular that he was eventually incorporated into the main religion, into Hinduism. He is a destroyer of social rights and barriers, and he taught those who were not to be taught. Generally speaking, Shiva, just a very, very good person overall, helping the unfortunate, all that stuff. He protects nature. He's also has some parallels to Dionysus in terms of being a bit of a partier. He's one of the first three gods alongside Brahma and Vishnu, kind of. They were born from the supreme goddess Adi Shakti. We will talk about Vishnu later. Some stories rank Shiva as the strongest god, some rank Vishnu as the strongest god, some rank Brahma as the strongest god. Shiva also has a little bit of a unique feature in that it can only be fused from Barang and Rangda. Only those two together can make Shiva. So yeah. Next up is Siegfried. Siegfried is a Germanic folk hero. He fought and killed some dragons. Appears in some Norse texts. That's really about it. I don't believe... Okay, so it does... Sometimes he's also Sigurd, sometimes he's not. It's a little bit debated. Next up is Skathi. Skathi is a Norse ice goddess. She demanded that the Aesir, the gods, gave reparations for her father's death. She was married to a sea spirit, Njord, but they amicably divorced, and she married Haller, a minor god of archery. She was really well liked by Balder, the son of Odin, the first son of Odin, really well liked, and of course, when Loki killed him, we have mentioned this before, Skathi tried to help execute him. So, despite not having too much importance in terms of, you mainly think of, like, Freya, Frey, Balder, Thor, Odin, really those, and Loki. Still very important. Scandinavia could possibly be translated as Skathi's land. She's also a death goddess and has dominions over hunting, and she helps lost travelers in snow or storm. Our next one up is Sraosha. Sraosha is a Zoroastrian divine being. He is one of the three beings that guards the bridge to the afterlife. He's a messenger between God and man. I apologize, perfect. I apologize, I don't really have too much to say about the Zoroastrian ones. It's a very confusing religion for me to understand, and it's not one that's talked about all too much. Next up is Sort. Sort is the ruler of Muspelheim, the land of fire giants. He's a prominent figure in Ragnarok, and he, in Ragnarok, would fight Frey and kill him, and then the world would get set on fire from Sort's, well, fires. Makes sense. Tsukiyomi, I believe we've gotten before. Yeah, that looks like it. Next up is Vishnu. Vishnu, another major Hindu god, alongside Brahma and Shiva. He's the lord of law and order, he protects the world, and he's essentially the main god of Hinduism. Many stories with Shiva, so a lot of stories that would involve Shiva also involve Vishnu. They are very inseparable in that sort of context. He eventually will serve a role in bringing the world to its end, ultimately establishing Dharma once more by killing all evildoers. Also has Vahana's wings, which decreases the cost of wind spells. Next up is, where is it? Yoshitsune. Yoshitsune is actually a real person, one of a few, actually very few, in the series. Minamoto no Yoshitsune. He was a general during the Genpei War in 1180, not 1880, 1180. And he was the half-brother to the future emperor following that war, Minamoto no Yoritomo. He's one of the greatest generals in Japanese history, but eventually would be betrayed by his half-brother, leading to his death. And our final one that we haven't talked about is Zelgongen. Zelgongen is a god within southern Japan, primarily within Shigendo beliefs, but also does have some association in Buddhism. Within Buddhism, he is known as Vajragarba, who is somewhat of a lightning spirit. Again, a little bit weird that he's actually weak to lightning, despite being a lightning spirit. He is the patron spirit of Mount Kimpu, and he is often a wrathful spirit, engulfed in flames to destroy evil. And that's every persona. At least the mythology of every persona. But there's still a little bit more that we can talk about. First of all, itemization is always important. You see Climb Slice, and let's go over what everyone's ultimate weapons are. I'm just going to do this by level because it's a little bit easier. So, the ultimate gun for Joker is brought about by Lucifer, the Tyrant Pistol, again with alarms on all of these. The best sword for Yusuke is from Yoshitsune, and the best gun for Makoto is from Michael. The best sword for Akechi is from Futsunushi. The best sword for Morgana comes from Mother Harlot. The best gun for An comes from Odin. The best gun for Sumire comes from Arda. The best gun for Morgana comes from Vishnu. The best weapon for Makoto comes from Sibel. The best gun for Haru comes from Baal. The best gun for Ryuji comes from Shiva. And the best gun for Yusuke from Uriel. Best axe for Haru comes from Beelzebub. The best gun for Akechi comes from Vohumana. The best sword for Sumire comes from Sandalphon. The best whip for An comes from Black Frost. And I think that's it. Oh no, the best weapon for Ryuji comes from Thor. And I want to say that's all of them. Yes, it is. So that's how you get all the best weapons. The best knife for Joker comes from Satanile, which we can only get in New Game Plus. But we have everything. Well, okay, not exactly everything. I'm very low on Black Coat Katana still. I spent about 2 hours after the last part looking for the Black Coat Katana and didn't get any. However, I think we may actually be able to... sorry about that. We may be able to actually have perfectly enough to still get all of them. To get all the best weapons. Maybe. I would have to come into Mementos the next 2 days, but and buy from Jose, but that's not really that big of a deal. But I do actually have all of the guns, by the way. I'll have to upgrade them. I do have everyone's best gun equipped. And I just have the best weapon for Ryuji, An, and Yusuke. And Haru. But next time, we'll actually be doing some of those preparations. So until then, see you guys later.